The dust kicked up around his boots like smoke as Travis Sullivan watched the woman stumble into Fort Stanton, New Mexico. Her dress torn and her face streaked with dirt and tears, and he knew right then that his evening plans of whiskey and cards had just changed completely. It was September 1878, and the sun hung low over the desert horizon, painting everything in shades of amber and red. Travis had been tending to his horse outside the livery stable when he spotted her. She looked like she had walked through hell itself, her brown hair falling loose from what had once been a proper bun, her feet wrapped in rags that had once been shoes. She could not have been more than 20 years old, and the desperation in her eyes made his chest tighten. "Madam." Travis called out, leaving his horse's side and walking toward her with careful steps, not wanting to startle her. "Are you all right?" The woman stopped, swaying slightly on her feet. Her eyes, a striking green even through the exhaustion, focused on him with difficulty. "I need help," she said, her voice cracking. "Please, I have nowhere to go." Travis closed the distance between them quickly, reaching out to steady her as her knees buckled. Up close, he could see the sunburn on her cheeks, the way her lips were cracked and bleeding from dehydration. "When did you last have water?" "Yesterday morning, I think," she whispered. "Maybe the day before. I lost track." Without hesitation, Travis guided her to the water trough near the stable. He pulled his canteen from his belt and handed it to her. "Slow sips," he warned. "Too much too fast will make you sick." She nodded and drank carefully, her hands shaking as she held the canteen. Travis studied her while she drank, noting the quality of her dress beneath the damage. This was not some common drifter. The fabric had been expensive once, the cut fashionable. Whatever had brought her to this state, she had fallen from somewhere much higher. "My name is Travis Sullivan," he said gently. "What's yours?" She lowered the canteen and met his eyes. "Margaret Brennan," she said, "but everyone calls me Maggie." "Well, Miss Maggie, why don't you tell me what brought you out here in such a state?" Maggie's eyes filled with tears, and she looked away. "My husband died 3 months ago. Cholera. We had a ranch about 40 miles north of here, but without him, I could not keep it running. The bank took everything. I had family in Santa Fe, or so I thought. I sold what little I had left and bought passage on a stage-coach heading that way." Travis felt his jaw tighten. He could already guess where this story was going. "Let me guess. The stage was robbed." 5 days ago, Maggie confirmed. "They took everything. The money, my bags, even the driver's horses. They left us in the middle of nowhere. The other passengers went one direction, but I knew Santa Fe was east, so I started walking. I got turned around somehow. I have been walking ever since." "Alone? They left you alone out there?" Maggie's expression hardened slightly. "The other passengers were a family. They had their own troubles. I told them to go ahead, that I would be fine. I was wrong." Travis shook his head, anger rising in his chest at the thought of anyone leaving a woman alone in the desert. But anger would not help her now. "Can you stand?" "I think so." He helped her to her feet, noting how thin she was beneath her dress. She had not just been without water. She had been without proper food for much longer than 5 days. "Come on, let's get you to the boarding house. Mrs. Chen runs a clean establishment and she will get you fed and give you a room." "I have no money," Maggie said quietly, shame coloring her voice. "I cannot pay." "Don't worry about that right now. I cannot accept charity. I have already taken too much from the world and given nothing back." Travis stopped and looked at her directly. "Miss Maggie, you're about to fall over from hunger and exhaustion. Pride is a fine thing, but it will not keep you alive. Let me help you now, and you can figure out how to repay me later if it matters that much to you." Maggie searched his face for a long moment, then nodded slowly. "Thank you, Mr. Sullivan." "Travis," he corrected. "We are not formal around here." He guided her down the main street of Fort Stanton, aware of the curious stares they were attracting. It was a small town, maybe 200 people on a good day, and everyone knew everyone else's business. By morning, the whole town would know about the mysterious woman Travis Sullivan had brought in from the desert. The boarding house sat at the end of the street, a sturdy adobe building with a wooden porch. Mrs. Chen, a Chinese woman who had come west with her late husband during the railroad boom, stood in the doorway with her arms crossed. She was in her 50s, sharp-eyed and sharper-tongued, but Travis knew she had a good heart beneath her stern exterior. "Travis Sullivan," she said as they approached. "What trouble are you bringing to my doorstep?" "No trouble, Mrs. Chen. This is Miss Maggie Brennan. She needs a room and a hot meal." Mrs. Chen's stern expression softened as she took in Maggie's condition. "Good Lord, child, what happened to you?" "It's a long story," Maggie said weakly. "Well, you can tell me over supper. Come inside." Mrs. Chen beckoned them forward. "Travis, you staying or going?" "I will be back to check on her later," Travis said. He turned to Maggie. "You are in good hands with Mrs. Chen. Get some rest." Maggie reached out and touched his arm lightly. "Thank you, Travis. I mean it. You saved my life today." The touch sent an unexpected warmth through his chest, just doing what any decent person would do. He tipped his hat and headed back into the street, but his mind stayed with Maggie. There was something about her that had reached past his usual defenses. Travis had spent the last 5 years keeping people at arm's length, ever since the war had taken his brother and left him with scars both visible and hidden. He worked as a ranch hand for various spreads around Fort Stanton, saved his money and kept to himself. Romance had never been part of his plans, but something about Maggie's eyes, the strength he saw in her despite her circumstances, made him want to know more. Travis headed to the saloon, needing a drink to clear his head. The Golden Spur was busy for a weeknight, filled with cowboys and miners and the occasional soldier from the fort. He found a spot at the bar and ordered whiskey. "Heard you brought in a woman from the desert," the bartender Sam said as he poured the drink. "That true? News travels fast, always does. She one of the passengers from that stage that got robbed last week," Travis nodded, taking a sip of his whiskey. "She walked for 5 days." Sam let out a low whistle. "Tough woman, tough or desperate? Maybe both. You planning on helping her out?" Travis considered the question. The smart thing would be to make sure she was settled with Mrs. Chen and then move on. He had enough complications in his life without adding a woman to the mix. But even as he thought it, he knew he was not going to walk away. Something about Maggie had already gotten under his skin. "Maybe," he said finally. "She needs work, needs a way to get back on her feet." Sam grinned. "You got that look, Sullivan. The look of a man who is already in over his head." "I don't know what you are talking about." "Sure you don't. Just remember the last time you got involved in someone else's problems, you ended up getting shot." Travis unconsciously touched his left shoulder, where a bullet scar still ached when the weather changed. That had been 2 years ago when he had helped a family defend their homestead from claim jumpers. He had survived, but barely. "This is different, if you say so." Travis finished his drink and headed back to the boarding house. The sun had fully set now, and the desert air had taken on the cool bite of evening. He found Mrs. Chen on the porch, smoking a thin cigarette. "She is sleeping," Mrs. Chen said before Travis could ask. "Poor thing ate half a chicken and fell asleep at the table. I got her into bed." "How bad is she?" "Dehydrated, malnourished, sunburned. Nothing that food and rest will not fix, but it was close. Another day or 2 in the desert and you would have been finding a body instead of a woman." Travis leaned against the porch railing. "She say anything else about what happened?" "Not much. But I have seen that look before. She has lost everything, Travis. Not just her things, but her whole life. Her husband, her home, her future. That kind of loss does things to a person. She seems strong, though. Mrs. Chen smiled slightly. She is. I can see it in her eyes, but strength only carries you so far when you have nothing left to be strong for. Maybe we can help her find something. So you are planning on sticking around then? Travis shrugged. Someone needs to look out for her until she gets back on her feet. And it just happens to be you. I found her. That makes her my responsibility. Mrs. Chen laughed softly. Travis Sullivan, you are many things, but a liar is not one of them. At least, not a good liar. You like her. I just met her. And yet here you are, checking on her when you could be drinking with your friends. You like her, and that is all right. You have been alone long enough. Travis did not respond. He was not ready to admit, even to himself, what he might be feeling. Instead, he said, what does she owe you for the room and board? Let's call it $2 a week. That includes meals. Put it on my account, Travis. Just do it, Mrs. Chen, at least for the first couple weeks until she can figure out what she is going to do. Mrs. Chen studied him for a long moment, then nodded. All right, but you tell her it's coming from you, not from me. I will not have her thinking I am running a charity house. Fair enough. Travis headed home to his small room above the general store, but sleep did not come easily. He kept seeing Maggie's face, the vulnerability mixed with determination. He had been drawn to that combination before, in his brother's widow after the war. He had tried to help her too, but she had eventually remarried and moved east, leaving Travis to wonder if he was just destined to watch from the sidelines while other people lived their lives. The next morning, Travis woke early and headed to the boarding house. He found Maggie on the porch, looking much better than she had the previous day. Her face was still sunburned, but the haunted look in her eyes had softened. She had borrowed a dress from Mrs. Chen, something simple but clean, and she had pulled her hair back into a neat braid. Good morning, Travis said, climbing the porch steps. Good morning. Maggie smiled, and Travis felt his heart skip slightly. She was beautiful, he realized, not in the delicate porcelain way of the women in fashion magazines, but in a real, substantial way. Mrs. Chen told me you paid for my room. It is nothing. It is not nothing. It is generous and I appreciate it, but I cannot let you keep paying for me. I need to find work. Travis sat down in the chair next to hers. What kind of work are you looking for? Anything, really. I can cook, clean, so. I help my husband run our ranch, so I know about keeping books and managing supplies. I am not afraid of hard work. That is good, because hard work is about all we have around here. Travis thought for a moment. The school teacher is leaving at the end of the month. Getting married and moving to Denver. The town has been looking for a replacement. Can you read and write? Of course. My father was a teacher back in Ohio. He made sure all his children were educated. Then that might be an option. The pay is not much, but it comes with a small house and respect in the community. Maggie's eyes lit up. That would be perfect. How do I apply? There is a town council meeting tomorrow night. I can take you to it and introduce you to the mayor. Fair warning, though, some of the council members can be particular about who they hire. Particular how? Travis hesitated. Fort Stanton is a small town with small town attitudes. You are a young widow without family here. Some folks might think that makes you unsuitable. Because I might be a moral danger to the community. Maggie's tone was sharp with old anger, something like that. I see. Well, I will just have to convince them otherwise. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, watching the town wake up around them. A group of cowboys rode past, headed for the range. A woman swept the porch of the general store. A dog barked somewhere in the distance. Can I ask you something? Maggie said finally. Sure, why are you helping me? You do not know me, I could be anyone. Travis considered his answer carefully. My brother died in the war. Before he went, he made me promise that if anything happened to him, I would look after his wife. I did my best, but she did not want to stay in New Mexico. She moved back east, remarried. I felt like I had failed him. That was not your fault. Maybe not. But I have been carrying it around anyway. When I saw you yesterday stumbling into town like that, I guess I saw a chance to not fail someone. Does that make sense? Maggie reached over and took his hand. Her touch was warm and firm. It makes perfect sense. And for what it is worth, I think your brother would be proud of you. Travis felt emotion tighten his throat. He squeezed her hand gently, then released it. We should get you some proper clothes. Mrs. Chen's dresses are fine, but you will need your own things if you are going to be living here. I told you I have no money. And I told you not to worry about it. Consider it a loan. You can pay me back when you get the teaching job. You seem very confident that I will get it. Travis stood and offered her his arm. That is because I have seen you survive 5 days in the desert. If you can do that, you can handle a few stubborn council members. They walked to the general store together, and Travis tried not to notice how right it felt to have Maggie's hand resting on his arm. The store was owned by a widow named Mrs. Patterson, a kind woman in her 60s who immediately took to Maggie. "Oh, you poor dear," Mrs. Patterson said when Travis explained the situation. "Let me find you some proper dresses. We have several that should fit you." While Maggie tried on clothes, Travis wandered the store, picking up supplies he did not really need just to have something to do with his hands. He found himself imagining what it would be like to do this regularly, to come to the store with Maggie as his wife, to build a life together. The thought surprised him with its intensity. He had not thought about marriage in years. After the war, after watching so many friends die, he had convinced himself that he was not meant for that kind of happiness. But standing in the general store, listening to Maggie laugh at something Mrs. Patterson said, he felt that old conviction start to crack. Maggie emerged from the back room wearing a simple blue dress that brought out the color of her eyes. "What do you think?" "It suits you," Travis said, and his voice came out rougher than he intended. Mrs. Patterson grinned knowingly. "I will wrap up 3 dresses, some undergarments, and a good pair of boots. You will need a hat too with that sun. Your skin is already suffering." "Mrs. Patterson, I cannot afford all that," Maggie protested. "Travis is buying, dear, and before you argue, just think of it as an investment. If you get that teaching job, you can pay him back in installments." Maggie looked at Travis, her expression torn between gratitude and discomfort. "You have already done too much. Let me worry about that," Travis said. "Besides, if you are going to represent Fort Stanton as the school teacher, you need to look the part." After they left the general store, Travis walked Maggie around town, introducing her to the key people she would need to know. The blacksmith, Mr. Torres. The doctor, Dr. Hensley. The owner of the saloon, Sam, who greeted Maggie with surprising gentleness. Everyone was welcoming, though Travis could see the curiosity in their eyes. Fort Stanton did not get many new residents, especially not beautiful young widows. By the time they returned to the boarding house for lunch, Maggie was laughing freely, the tension she had carried since arriving finally beginning to ease. Mrs. Chen served them beef stew and fresh bread, and they ate together at the large communal table. "You seem happier," Mrs. Chen observed. "I feel like I might actually have a future again," Maggie said. "Yesterday I was ready to give up. Today I have hope. That is because of Travis." Travis felt his face heat. "I just made some introductions. You did more than that, and you know it." Maggie met his eyes across the table. "You gave me a chance when no one else would have. I will not forget that." That night, Travis lay awake again, but this time his sleeplessness came from anticipation rather than worry. He kept replaying the day in his mind, the way Maggie had smiled at him, the warmth of her hand on his arm. He was in dangerous territory, he knew. Falling for a woman he barely knew, making plans that had no right being made so soon. But his heart did not seem to care about logic or caution. His heart only knew that for the first time in years he felt alive. The next evening, Travis put on his best shirt and jacket and went to collect Maggie for the town council meeting. She was waiting on the porch, wearing the blue dress and looking nervous. "How do I look?" she asked. "Like a schoolteacher," Travis said with a smile. "You will do fine." The meeting was held in the church, the only building large enough to hold the whole council and any townspeople who wanted to attend. Travis guided Maggie to a seat near the front, aware of the whispers following them. The mayor, a portly man named George Henderson, called the meeting to order. They went through the usual business first, discussions of water rights and property disputes and funding for road repairs. Finally, Mayor Henderson cleared his throat. "We have one more item of business tonight. As you all know, Miss Fletcher will be leaving us at the end of the month. We need a new school teacher. Do we have any candidates?" Travis stood up. "Mr. Mayor, I would like to introduce Miss Margaret Brennan. She is new to Fort Stanton, but she comes from a family of educators and is well qualified to teach our children." Maggie stood beside him, her back straight and her chin held high. "Thank you for considering me, Mayor Henderson. I would be honored to serve this community as your teacher." One of the council members, a sour-faced rancher named Daniels, spoke up. "What do we know about this woman? Where does she come from? What are her credentials?" Maggie did not flinch. "I was born in Ohio, Mr. Daniels. My father was a schoolteacher for 30 years. He taught me to read Latin, Greek, and French, as well as mathematics, history, and science. I came to New Mexico with my late husband 3 years ago. After his death, I lost our ranch and was attempting to reach family in Santa Fe when I was robbed. Travis found me and brought me here. I have no formal teaching certificate, but I have the knowledge and the dedication to educate your children well." Another council member, a woman named Mrs. Wright, leaned forward. "What about your moral character? You are a young woman, unmarried, without family. How can we be sure you are a proper influence on our children?" Travis felt anger rise in his chest, but Maggie put a gentle hand on his arm, stopping him from speaking. "Mrs. Wright, I understand your concern. All I can offer you is my word that I am a woman of integrity and faith. I have been tested by loss and hardship, and I have survived with my morals intact. I can provide references from my previous community, though it may take some time to obtain them. Beyond that, you will simply have to trust that Travis Sullivan would not vouch for someone unworthy of that trust." The mention of Travis seemed to carry weight. Several council members nodded and Mayor Henderson smiled. "Travis is a good judge of character. That counts for something. Let us take a vote. All in favor of hiring Miss Brennan as our new school teacher." 5 hands went up. 2, including Mr. Daniels, remained down. "Motion carries," Mayor Henderson declared. "Miss Brennan, the job is yours. You will start the first Monday in October. The salary is $40 a month and you will have use of the schoolhouse cottage. Do you accept?" "I do," Maggie said, and Travis could hear the joy in her voice. "Thank you all so much. I promise you will not regret this decision." After the meeting, several townspeople came up to congratulate Maggie and welcome her officially to Fort Stanton. Mrs. Patterson invited her to join the ladies' sewing circle. Dr. Hensley offered to help her move into the cottage. By the time they left the church, Maggie's eyes were bright with happy tears. "I cannot believe it," she said as they walked back toward the boarding house. "A week ago I thought I was going to die in the desert. Now I have a job and a home and a future." "You earned it," Travis said. "You impressed them. I had help." Maggie stopped walking and turned to face him. The moon was bright overhead, casting silver light across her face. "Travis, I do not know how to thank you for everything you have done. You have given me my life back." "You are welcome," Travis said softly. They stood close together, and he could smell the soap Mrs. Chen had given her, something floral and sweet. His heart was pounding so hard he was sure she could hear it. "Can I ask you something?" Maggie said. "Anything. Why are you really helping me? And please, I want the true answer this time, not the one about your brother." Travis took a breath. He could lie, could retreat behind his usual defenses. But looking into Maggie's eyes, he found he did not want to. "Because from the moment I saw you, I felt something I have not felt in a long time. Hope, maybe, or possibility. I spent 5 years convincing myself I was fine alone, that I did not need anyone. And then you walked into town, and suddenly I was not so sure anymore." Maggie's breath caught. "Travis, you do not have to say anything," he interrupted. "I know it is too soon. You have been through too much to think about this kind of thing right now. I just wanted you to know the truth." "It is too soon," Maggie agreed. "But that does not mean I have not felt it too. This pull between us. I noticed it the first day, even through my exhaustion." "You have kind eyes, Travis Sullivan, and a kind heart. I would be lying if I said I did not want to know you better." Travis smiled. "Then we will take it slow. Be friends first, see where it leads." "I would like that." They resumed walking, and this time when Maggie took his arm, it felt like a promise of something more to come. The next few weeks passed quickly. Maggie moved into the small cottage behind the schoolhouse, and Travis helped her settle in. He built her a bookshelf and repaired the leaky roof. He brought her firewood for the coming winter and helped her plant a small garden. They fell into an easy routine of spending evenings together, talking about everything and nothing. Travis learned that Maggie loved poetry and could recite whole passages from memory. That she had a dry sense of humor that caught him off guard and made him laugh. That she was afraid of spiders but not snakes, and that she cried when she was angry instead of yelling. Maggie learned that Travis had fought at Glorietta Pass during the Civil War and still had nightmares about it sometimes. That he was better with horses than people, and that he had a talent for sketching that he rarely shared with anyone. That his favorite meal was chicken and dumplings, and that he secretly enjoyed listening to her read poetry aloud even though he pretended to find it silly. They grew closer, but Travis was careful to maintain proper boundaries. He knew the town was watching, knew that Maggie's reputation depended on her being seen as respectable. So he always left before dark, always kept a proper distance in public, even though it got harder every day not to reach for her hand or pull her close. The school year started, and Maggie threw herself into teaching with a passion that inspired the whole town. She taught 23 children ranging from age 6 to 15, and within a month, she had won over even the skeptical Mr. Daniels, whose 2 grandchildren came home every day excited about what they had learned. Travis would sometimes stop by during lunch to bring Maggie food or just to watch her teach. He loved seeing her in her element, patient with the struggling students and challenging with the advanced ones. She had found her purpose, and it made her glow. One evening in late October, Travis arrived at Maggie's cottage with a bouquet of wildflowers he had picked on the range. Maggie opened the door with a smile that faded when she saw the flowers. "Travis, what is this?" "I know we said we would take it slow," Travis said. "But it has been 2 months now, and I cannot keep pretending that I am not completely in love with you. I think about you every minute of every day. I go to sleep thinking about you and wake up the same way. You have become the most important thing in my life, Maggie Brennan, and I do not want to hide it anymore." Maggie took the flowers with shaking hands. "Travis, I love you too. I have for weeks now, but I am afraid." "Of what?" "Of losing this. Of losing you, I already lost one husband. I do not think I could survive losing another. Travis stepped inside and closed the door behind him. He took the flowers and set them aside, then took both of Maggie's hands in his. I cannot promise that nothing bad will ever happen. This is a hard land, and life does not come with guarantees. But I can promise that I will spend every day I have loving you and working to build a life with you. Is not that enough? Tears spilled down Maggie's cheeks. It is more than enough. It is everything. Travis pulled her into his arms and kissed her, and it felt like coming home. Maggie kissed him back with equal passion, her hands fisting in his shirt as if she could not get close enough. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Travis rested his forehead against hers. "Marry me," he said. "I know it is fast, but I am 30 years old and I have never been more certain of anything in my life. Marry me, Maggie." "Yes," Maggie said without hesitation. "Yes, Travis Sullivan, I will marry you." They were married 3 weeks later in the church, with the whole town in attendance. Maggie wore a white dress that Mrs. Patterson and the sewing circle had made for her, and Travis wore a new suit ordered special from Santa Fe. Mrs. Chen cried during the vows, and even gruff old Sam from the saloon looked misty-eyed. After the ceremony, there was a celebration at the Golden Spur. The town had cleared out the gambling tables and brought in food and music. Travis danced with his new wife, aware of nothing but the joy in her eyes and the perfect fit of her in his arms. "Happy?" he asked as they swayed to a waltz. "Deliriously," Maggie said. 3 months ago I had nothing. Now I have everything. It feels like a dream." "It is real," Travis assured her. "All of this is real." They spent their wedding night in Maggie's cottage, which would now be their home. Travis made love to his wife with reverence and passion, and Maggie responded with equal fervor. Afterward, they lay tangled together in bed, and Travis thought about how much his life had changed since that day in September when a desperate woman had stumbled into town. "What are you thinking about?" Maggie asked, tracing patterns on his chest with her finger. "About how lucky I am. About how one decision, one moment of stopping to help someone changed my entire life. Do you regret it?" "Not for a single second." Maggie propped herself up on her elbow to look at him. "I need to tell you something I should have told you before we got married, but I was afraid." Travis felt a flutter of concern. "What is it?" "The real reason I was walking alone in the desert. The truth is, the other passengers did not leave me behind. I left them. After the robbery, one of the men, Mr. Carlson, started making advances toward me, inappropriate ones. When I rejected him, he became angry and threatening. His wife blamed me, said I had encouraged him. So I left in the middle of the night. I walked away and hoped I could make it to civilization before I died of thirst." Travis felt anger burn through him at the thought of someone threatening Maggie. "Did he hurt you?" "No, I got away before it went that far, but I felt so ashamed, like somehow it was my fault. I know that is ridiculous, but it is how I felt." Travis pulled her close. "Listen to me. What that man did was not your fault, not in any way, and you survived. You saved yourself. That makes you brave, not shameful. I should have told you sooner. You told me now, that is what matters." Travis kissed her forehead. "We all have scars, Maggie. We all have things we are not proud of or things that were done to us. But we are building something new together, and the past does not get to dictate our future." "Agreed, agreed," Maggie said softly. "I love you, Travis Sullivan. I love you too." Winter came to Fort Stanton, bringing cold winds and occasional snow. Travis continued working as a ranch hand, saving every penny he could. His dream was to buy land of his own, to build a ranch that he and Maggie could run together. He shared this dream with her on a cold January night as they sat by the fire. "How much land would you want?" Maggie asked, her head resting on his shoulder. "Couple 100 acres, at least, enough for cattle and horses, maybe some crops if the land is good. I have been looking at a property about 10 miles from here. The owner is getting old and wants to sell. I think I could make him a fair offer come spring." "That sounds wonderful. I could keep teaching until we have children, and then I could help you run the ranch." Travis turned to look at her. "You want children, of course. Do not you?" "I do," Travis said. "I just did not know if you were ready for that after losing your first husband." Maggie smiled. "I am ready, Travis. I want to build a life with you, a full, complete life, and that includes children." That night, they made love with new purpose, and Travis prayed that they would be blessed with a child soon. He wanted to give Maggie everything she had lost, wanted to fill her life with so much joy that the pain of her past became a distant memory. Spring arrived, bringing wildflowers and warm winds. Travis approached the elderly rancher about buying his land and was thrilled when the man accepted his offer. It would take every penny Travis had saved, plus a loan from the bank, but it would be worth it. They would have their own place, their own future. Maggie was equally excited, but there was something else glowing in her eyes, something that made Travis's heart race. On a warm April evening, she pulled him aside after dinner and took his hands. "Travis, I have news." "What kind of news?" "The best kind. I am pregnant. We are going to have a baby." Travis let out a whoop of joy and lifted Maggie off her feet, spinning her around until she laughed and begged him to stop. "Are you sure? Dr. Hensley confirmed it yesterday. He says the baby should come in November." "November. That gives us time to get the ranch set up to prepare." Travis set her down gently and cupped her face in his hands. "You have made me the happiest man alive, Maggie Sullivan." "We did this together," Maggie reminded him. "Everything we have, we built together." The next months were a flurry of activity. Travis took ownership of the ranch and immediately set to work repairing the house and outbuildings. The previous owner had let things go in his old age, and there was much to be done. Maggie helped when she could, though as her pregnancy advanced, Travis insisted she rest more. They moved into the ranch house in June, and Maggie decorated it with care, making it into a real home. She hung curtains she had sewn herself and planted flowers around the porch. Travis built furniture and repaired the fences. They worked side by side, and Travis had never been happier. The town continued to rally around them. Mrs. Chen brought food regularly, and Mrs. Patterson donated baby clothes from her own children's infancy. The other ranchers helped Travis with the heavy work, and in return, he helped them when they needed it. Fort Stanton might be small, but it looked after its own. In September, the school year started again, but Maggie had hired an assistant teacher to take over her duties. She was too far along in her pregnancy to manage the classroom alone, though she still visited regularly to check on her students. One evening in early November, as the first winter winds began to blow, Maggie's labor started. Travis rode hard to fetch Dr. Hensley, his heart in his throat. He had never been so afraid in his life, not even during the war. The thought of losing Maggie, of losing this woman who had become his entire world, was unbearable, but Maggie was strong, just as she had always been. After 12 hours of labor, she delivered a healthy baby boy. Travis held his son for the first time as dawn broke over the New Mexico desert, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold, and he wept with gratitude. "What should we name him?" Maggie asked from the bed, exhausted but glowing with joy. Travis looked down at his son's tiny face, at the perfection of his small features. "How about Thomas, after my brother?" "Thomas Sullivan," Maggie said, testing the name. "I love it, and we can call him Tommy." Travis carefully placed their son in Maggie's arms and sat on the edge of the bed, his own arm around his wife's shoulders. They sat like that, The three of them together as the sun rose, and Travis thought about everything that had led to this moment. A year ago, he had been alone, convinced that he was meant to be solitary. Then Maggie had stumbled into his life, broken and desperate, and he had given her what little he could offer. A saddle to ease her journey, though she had walked into town on foot. Metaphorically, he had given her the tools she needed to start over, to build a new life. And in return, Dawn had brought an army of blessings. Not just one blessing, but many. A wife he loved beyond measure. A son who carried his blood and his name. A home that was truly his own. Friends who cared about him. A community that had embraced him and his family. The phrase echoed in his mind as he watched Maggie nurse their son for the first time. Dawn brought an army of blessings. It was true in the most literal sense. The dawn of this new day had brought the blessing of his son's birth. But it was also true in a larger sense. The dawn of his new life with Maggie, starting from that September day when he had offered help to a stranger, had brought blessings beyond counting. "What are you smiling about?" Maggie asked, looking up at him. "Just thinking about how much I love you both, about how grateful I am for everything we have." "We have been blessed," Maggie agreed, "more than I ever thought possible." The years that followed were not without challenges. The ranch had lean times when cattle prices dropped or drought threatened their water supply. Maggie had difficult moments when memories of her first husband surfaced, bringing grief even in the midst of her happiness. Travis still had nightmares about the war, nights when he woke up sweating and shaking, and Maggie had to hold him until he calmed. But they faced everything together, and that made all the difference. When Tommy was 2, they had a daughter they named Mary. When Mary was 3, another son arrived named Daniel. Their family grew, and the ranch prospered. Travis proved to have a gift for breeding horses, and soon his animals were in demand throughout the territory. Maggie continued to be involved in the school, serving on the Board of Education even though she no longer taught. She started a library in Fort Stanton, soliciting book donations from throughout the territory. She became a pillar of the community, respected and loved by everyone who knew her. On their 10th anniversary, Travis and Maggie stood on the porch of their ranch house, watching their 3 children play in the yard. Tommy was 9 now, tall for his age and already showing an interest in ranching. Mary was 7, bright and curious, always asking questions. Daniel was 4, a whirlwind of energy and mischief. "Can you believe it has been 10 years?" Maggie asked, leaning against Travis's side. "Feels like yesterday and a lifetime ago all at once," Travis said. "Do you ever think about that day when you walked into Fort Stanton, all the time?" "I think about how close I came to giving up, to just lying down in the desert and letting it take me. If I had done that, none of this would exist. Our children would never have been born." Travis tightened his arm around her waist. "But you did not give up. You kept walking. You survived." "Because I had hope. Even when everything seemed lost, I had this tiny spark of hope that maybe, just maybe, things could get better. And then I saw you outside the livery stable, and that spark became a flame. I am the lucky one, Maggie. You brought meaning to my life. Before you, I was just going through the motions day after day. You reminded me what it means to actually live." Maggie turned in his arms and kissed him. After 10 years of marriage, kissing her still made his heart race. "We saved each other, Travis. That is the truth of it. We were both lost, and we found each other." Later that evening, after the children were asleep, Travis and Maggie sat together on the porch swing he had built for their 5th anniversary. The night was clear, stars scattered across the sky like diamonds on velvet. Maggie rested her head on Travis's shoulder and they swung gently, the chains creaking with a familiar, comforting sound. "Travis," Maggie said softly. "Yes, love. I need to tell you something. I have been waiting for the right moment, and I think this is it." Travis felt a flutter of concern, though Maggie's tone was not worried. "What is it?" "I am pregnant again." Travis stopped the swing, turning to look at his wife in the moonlight. "Are you sure?" "I am sure. Dr. Hensley confirmed it last week. The baby should come in late spring." A grin spread across Travis's face. "Another blessing." "An entire army of them," Maggie agreed, echoing the phrase they had used throughout their marriage to describe the abundance of good things that had come into their lives. "Are you happy about it?" Deliriously. "Terrified but deliriously happy. 4 children, Travis. Can you imagine?" "With you, I can imagine anything," Travis said, pulling her close. "Every impossible dream has come true since the day I met you. Why should this be any different?" The baby, another girl they named Sarah, arrived in May on a morning so beautiful it took Travis's breath away. The desert was in full bloom, wildflowers covering the hills in a riot of colors. As Travis held his newest daughter and watched the sunrise with Maggie beside him, he thought again about that phrase that had become their personal motto. Dawn brought an army of blessings. It was true every single day. Every sunrise brought new gifts, new reasons to be grateful. The smile on Tommy's face when he successfully roped his first calf. Mary's excitement when she learned to read. Daniel's infectious laugh. And now Sarah, perfect and tiny, another piece of their hearts walking around outside their bodies. The ranch continued to grow and prosper. Travis hired help as needed, treating his workers fairly and earning their loyalty. He became known throughout New Mexico as an honest dealer, a man whose word was his bond. When territorial politics threatened to bring violence to the area, Travis worked with other ranchers to keep the peace. He had seen enough violence during the war and had no desire to see it come to his home. Maggie expanded her library project, eventually getting funding from the territorial government to build a proper library building in Fort Stanton. She involved the children in her charitable work, teaching them the importance of giving back to the community that had embraced their family. As the children grew older, Travis and Maggie made sure to tell them the story of how they had met. How their mother had walked into Fort Stanton with nothing but the tattered clothes on her back and the strength of her will. How their father had offered help without expectation of return. How love had grown from kindness, and how their entire family was the result of one man's decision to do the right thing. "The lesson," Travis would tell them, "is that you never know how one small act of kindness might change the world. If I had walked past your mother that day, told myself it was not my problem, our entire family would not exist. Everything good in my life came from that one choice to help someone in need." Tommy took the lesson to heart. As a young man, he became known for his generosity, always ready to help a neighbor or stranger. Mary grew up to be a teacher like her mother, educating children throughout the territory. Daniel became a veterinarian, using his gifts to help animals. And Sarah, the youngest, grew up to be a writer, documenting the stories of the Old West so that future generations would understand the courage and hardship of the frontier days. On their 20th anniversary, Travis and Maggie traveled back to the spot where he had first seen her. They had made this pilgrimage several times over the years, a private ritual to remember where they had started. The livery stable was still there, though under new ownership. The town had grown significantly, with new buildings and new families, but it still retained its essential character. "Do you ever wonder what would have happened if you had gone a different direction that day?" Travis asked. "If you had not walked into Fort Stanton," Maggie shook her head. "I do not wonder because I do not believe in accidents. I think I was meant to walk into this town, meant to meet you. Call it fate or God's plan or simple chance, but everything in my life led me to you. I would not change a single moment, even the painful ones, because they brought me here. I feel the same way, Travis admitted. Every hardship, every loss, every moment of loneliness, it was all leading me to you. And it was worth it. 1,000 times over, it was worth it. They stood together in the fading light, and Travis thought about the cycle of life, about how endings led to new beginnings. His brother's death had brought him to New Mexico. The death of Maggie's first husband had set her on the path to Fort Stanton. Their losses had been real and painful, but they had also opened doors to new possibilities. "Travis," Maggie said, interrupting his thoughts. "Do you remember what you said to me that first night, when you checked on me at Mrs. Chen's boarding house?" "I said a lot of things that night. You said that pride would not keep me alive, that I needed to accept help. Do you remember?" "I remember. That was the moment I started to fall in love with you, though I did not recognize it at the time. You saw through my defenses to the fear underneath. You understood that I was not being proud but scared, and you offered me help without making me feel small. That took wisdom and compassion, Travis Sullivan. I just did what felt right. That is what makes you a good man. You instinctively know what the right thing is, and you do it without expecting praise or reward." Travis pulled his wife close, breathing in the familiar scent of her. After 20 years, she still made his heart race. "You are the reward, Maggie. You and our children and the life we have built. Every good thing I have is because of you." They kissed as the sun set over Fort Stanton, and Travis felt the familiar rush of love and gratitude that had sustained him through 2 decades of marriage. Some men searched their whole lives for meaning and never found it. He had been blessed to find his meaning walking into town on a September afternoon, desperate and alone and in need of help. He had offered her what little he had, metaphorically the saddle off his horse, the tools she needed to continue her journey. And in return, every dawn since had brought an army of blessings. Love, family, prosperity, purpose, joy beyond measure. The blessings had not stopped coming, and Travis knew they never would. As long as he and Maggie were together, as long as they continued to build their life with love and intention, the blessings would continue to multiply. As they aged, Travis and Maggie remained deeply in love. They grew old together on the ranch, watching their children have children of their own. Tommy took over the ranching operation, running it with the same integrity his father had shown. Mary's students went on to become teachers themselves, spreading education throughout the West. Daniel's veterinary practice served the entire territory. And Sarah's books preserved the stories of the frontier, including the love story of her parents. On their 40th anniversary, Travis and Maggie sat together on their porch, much as they had done countless times before. They were in their 60s now, their bodies showing the wear of hard years and hard work. But the love in their eyes remained as fresh and vital as it had been that first day in Fort Stanton. 40 years, Maggie marveled. "How did we get so lucky, Travis?" "We made our own luck," Travis said. "By choosing each other every day, by working through the hard times instead of running from them, by building something that mattered." "Do you have any regrets?" Travis considered the question seriously. "Only one. I wish I could go back and tell that lonely cowboy from 40 years ago that everything was going to work out. That the best thing that would ever happen to him was about to walk into his life. It might have saved him a few sleepless nights." Maggie laughed. "And I wish I could tell that terrified woman in the desert that she was almost home, that safety and love and happiness were just a few more miles away, that she should not give up hope. But we could not tell them, could we? They had to walk their paths just like everyone else." "That is true. And maybe that is the point. Maybe the journey matters as much as the destination." Travis squeezed his wife's hand. "I am just glad we took the journey together." They sat in comfortable silence, watching the sun set over the land they had made their own. In the distance, they could see Tommy working with the horses, teaching his own son the same skills Travis had taught him. The cycle continuing, generation after generation. As darkness fell and the stars emerged, Maggie stood and offered Travis her hand. "Come to bed, husband. Tomorrow is another day, and who knows what blessings it might bring." Travis took her hand and stood, his joints protesting but his heart full. "An army of them, I expect, same as every other day since I met you." They walked inside together, and Travis thought about how simple the foundation of a good life really was. Love someone well. Treat others with kindness. Do the right thing even when it is hard. Build something that matters. Help those who need it. Accept help when you need it. Face each day with gratitude and hope. He had learned all these lessons from Maggie, or rather, he had learned them alongside her as they built their life together. She had taught him that vulnerability was strength, that accepting help was not weakness but wisdom. That love was not a feeling but a choice, made fresh each day. That family was not just blood but the people you chose to stand with through good times and bad. The years continued to pass. Travis and Maggie celebrated their 50th anniversary surrounded by children, grandchildren, and a few great-grandchildren. The ranch was thriving under Tommy's management. Mary had become a school superintendent, overseeing education for 3 counties. Daniel's veterinary practice had expanded to include 2 partners. Sarah's latest book had become a bestseller in the East, bringing attention and respect to the stories of the frontier. Fort Stanton had grown into a proper town, with rail connections and telegraph lines and all the modern conveniences. But it had never lost its sense of community, its willingness to help neighbors in need. Travis liked to think he and Maggie had contributed to that culture, leading by example for 5 decades. On a crisp autumn morning, not unlike the day they had met 52 years earlier, Travis woke to find Maggie watching him from her pillow. "Good morning, love," he said, his voice rough with sleep. "Good morning. I was just thinking about everything we have been through together. All the years, all the memories. Having second thoughts," Travis teased. "Not a single one. I was just feeling grateful. We have been so blessed, Travis." "An army of blessings," he agreed. "Every single day." Maggie reached across the small distance between them and took his hand. After 52 years, her touch still sent warmth through his chest. "Promise me something, anything. When my time comes, do not grieve too long. Remember the joy instead of the loss, and know that I will be waiting for you whenever your time comes. We will meet again." Travis felt tears prick his eyes. They were both in their 70s now, and the specter of mortality hung closer than it had in their youth. "I promise. But you are not allowed to go anywhere yet. We still have more blessings to receive." "Always optimistic," Maggie said with a soft smile. "That is one of the things I love most about you." They rose together and prepared for the day. Travis still did light work around the ranch, though the heavy labor had passed to younger men. Maggie still volunteered at the library and hosted the ladies' sewing circle. They remained active in their community, valued for their wisdom and experience. That evening, the whole family gathered for Sunday dinner, as they did every week. 4 children, 16 grandchildren, and 7 great-grandchildren filled the ranch house with noise and laughter. Travis sat at the head of the table with Maggie beside him, and he looked around at the faces of his family, each one a miracle. Each one a blessing born from that single act of kindness 52 years ago. After dinner, as the family relaxed in the parlor, young Thomas, Tommy's oldest son, approached Travis. "Grandfather, will you tell us the story again, about how you and grandmother met?" Travis looked at Maggie, who nodded with a smile. It was a story they never tired of telling, a reminder of how far they had come. "Well," Travis began, settling back in his chair. "It was September of 1878, and I was tending to my horse outside the livery stable in Fort Stanton. The sun was setting, and I was thinking about heading to the saloon for a drink. Then I saw her, your grandmother, stumbling into town like she had walked through the gates of hell itself." The children and grandchildren listened raptly, even though most of them had heard the story dozens of times. Travis told them about Maggie's journey through the desert, about her strength and courage, about how he had offered help without knowing that he was actually helping himself, filling a hole in his heart that he had not fully acknowledged was there. "The thing you need to understand," Travis said, his eyes finding Maggie's across the room, "is that kindness is never wasted. When you help someone, you are not just changing their life, you are changing your own. Every person in this room exists because I stopped to help a stranger 52 years ago. That is the power of compassion." "But what made you stop?" one of the grandchildren asked. "Why did not you just walk by like other people might have?" Travis considered the question. "I think it was because I knew what it felt like to be desperate and alone. I had felt that way after the war, after losing my brother. So when I saw your grandmother, I recognized that desperation in her eyes, and I could not walk away from it." "So you saved her," the grandchild said. "No," Maggie spoke up from her chair across the room. "He gave me the tools to save myself. That is an important distinction. Your grandfather did not sweep in and solve all my problems. He gave me a chance, an opportunity to rebuild. I still had to do the work, still had to find my own strength. But he made it possible." "And what did grandmother give you, grandfather?" another grandchild asked. Travis smiled. "Everything. Purpose, love, family. She gave me everything that matters." Later, after the family had departed and the house was quiet again, Travis and Maggie sat together on the porch. The autumn air was cool, promising the winter to come, but they were wrapped in blankets and comfortable in each other's presence. "You think they understand?" Maggie asked. "The lesson we are trying to teach them. Some of them do. The others will understand when they are older, when they have faced their own challenges and made their own choices about how to treat others. I hope they all find love like we found. I hope they all know what it is to be truly seen and valued by another person." Travis pulled Maggie closer. "They will. We have raised them well, and they are raising their children well. Our legacy is not just this ranch or the money we have saved. It is the values we have passed down, the example we have set. You are a wise man, Travis Sullivan. Only because I married a wise woman." They sat in comfortable silence, and Travis reflected on the fullness of his life. He had lived through war and loss, through hardship and struggle. But he had also lived through joy and triumph, through the daily miracle of loving and being loved. The balance had tipped heavily toward the good, toward the blessings that had accumulated year after year. As winter settled over New Mexico, Travis and Maggie remained healthy and active, though age was definitely slowing them down. They spent more time by the fire, more time reminiscing about the past. But they also remained engaged with the present, curious about new developments in the territory and the nation. New Mexico was changing rapidly as the 19th century drew to a close. The frontier was being tamed, the wild spaces filled in with towns and roads and civilized society. Travis sometimes felt nostalgic for the rougher days of his youth, but he recognized that change brought benefits as well as losses. His grandchildren would grow up in a world with more opportunities and less violence, and that was not a bad thing. On a February morning, Maggie complained of feeling tired and took to bed earlier than usual. Travis fussed over her, bringing her tea and extra blankets. "Dr. Hensley, now retired but still consulted for the family, came by and examined her. "Her heart is tired," he told Travis privately. "At our age, everything starts to wear out. Make sure she rests and spend as much time with her as you can. I cannot say how long she has, but I do not think it will be years." Travis felt fear grip his heart, but he pushed it aside. Maggie needed his strength now, not his fear. He set up a bed in the parlor so she would not have to climb stairs and spent every moment at her side. The children came to visit frequently, bringing the grandchildren and great-grandchildren. The house was filled with love and laughter, and Maggie soaked it all in, her face peaceful despite her failing body. On a morning in early March, with the first signs of spring visible in the desert, Maggie woke and asked Travis to help her to the porch. He wrapped her in blankets and carried her outside, settling her in her favorite chair. The sun was just rising, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold. "Beautiful," Maggie whispered. "I never get tired of watching the dawn." Travis sat beside her and took her hand. "Dawn brings an army of blessings. It always has for us, has it not?" Maggie turned her head to look at him, and the love in her eyes was as strong as it had ever been. "I am not afraid, Travis. I have lived a full life, loved and been loved. I have no regrets." "I am afraid," Travis admitted. "I do not know how to exist without you, Maggie. You have been my everything for 52 years. You will go on because you are strong. You will go on because our children and grandchildren need you. You will go on because that is what we do. We survive, we adapt, we keep living even when it hurts. I do not want to, I know, but you will anyway because that is who you are." Maggie squeezed his hand weakly. "And you will not be alone for long. I will be waiting for you, and when your time comes, we will be together again." "This is not goodbye forever, Travis. It is just goodbye for now." They sat together as the sun rose higher, watching the light spread across their land. Maggie's breathing grew slower and more labored, but she remained conscious, her hand in Travis's. "Tell me," she said softly. "Tell me about that first day, when you saw me walk into town." Travis swallowed hard against the emotion in his throat. "You looked like an angel who had fallen to earth, broken and beautiful and so very brave. I saw you and knew, somewhere deep in my soul, that my life was about to change. I saw a kind man with sad eyes who offered help without judgment. I saw my future, though I did not know it yet. We saved each other, Maggie. We did. And we built something beautiful together." As the sun reached its full glory, filling the sky with light, Maggie drew one last deep breath. She looked at Travis with perfect clarity and perfect love. "Thank you," she whispered, "for everything." Then she closed her eyes and was gone. Travis sat holding her hand as the dawn continued to brighten around them, and he thought about blessings and loss, about love and grief. His heart was shattered, broken into pieces that he was not sure could ever be put back together. But even in his grief, he felt gratitude for the 52 years they had shared, for the family they had built, for the love that had sustained him through the decades. The funeral was held 3 days later, and it seemed like the entire territory came to pay their respects. Maggie had touched so many lives through her teaching and her charitable work. People came from all over to share stories of how she had helped them, inspired them, changed them. Travis listened to it all and felt pride mix with his grief. His wife had made a difference in the world. She had mattered. After the funeral, Travis returned to the ranch. The children wanted him to come stay with one of them, but he refused. This was his home, the place he and Maggie had built together. He would not abandon it. The days passed slowly. Travis fell into a routine of work and memory. He tended to the ranch, though most of the actual labor was done by hired hands and Tommy. He sat on the porch every evening and remembered. He sorted through old letters and photographs. He read the poetry Maggie had loved and thought about all the evenings she had read to him. But he did not give up. He kept living because Maggie had asked him to, because his family needed him, because he owed it to her memory. And slowly, very slowly, the sharp edge of grief began to dull. It never disappeared, never stopped aching, but it became bearable. Spring turned to summer, and Travis found himself able to smile again when the grandchildren visited. He told them stories about their grandmother, keeping her memory alive for the younger ones who would not remember her clearly. He realized that this was his purpose now, to be the keeper of their family history, the living connection to the past. One September morning, exactly 53 years after he had first met Maggie, Travis woke feeling at peace. He dressed carefully in his best clothes and walked out to the porch. The sun was rising, just as it had that long-ago morning when Maggie had died in his arms. Just as it had risen every day of their life together. He sat in his chair and looked out over the land they had built together. In the distance, he could see Tommy working with the horses. Smoke rose from the chimney of the house Mary and her husband had built on the property. Daniel's veterinary clinic was visible on the far edge of the ranch. Sarah's house, where she still wrote her books, sat nestled among the cottonwood trees. Everything they had built together was thriving. Their legacy was secure. Their children and grandchildren were living good lives, passing on the values Maggie and Travis had taught them. The blessings continued to multiply, generation after generation. Travis felt a warmth spread through his chest, and he realized it was contentment. Even without Maggie physically present, he felt her everywhere. In the house they had built, in the faces of their descendants, in the very air of the place they had made their own. "Thank you," he said softly, speaking to the universe, to God, to Maggie's spirit, wherever it might be. "Thank you for every blessing. Thank you for that day 53 years ago when a desperate woman walked into Fort Stanton and changed my life forever. Thank you for the love and the family and the years we had together." A breeze kicked up, warm and gentle, and Travis imagined he could smell Maggie's perfume on the wind. He smiled and closed his eyes, feeling the sun on his face. When Tommy came to check on his father an hour later, he found Travis sitting peacefully in his chair, a slight smile on his face. He had passed quietly, looking out over the land he loved, surrounded by the legacy he and Maggie had built. The family buried Travis next to Maggie in the cemetery overlooking Fort Stanton. The whole town came to the funeral, just as they had for Maggie. People spoke of Travis's generosity and integrity, of the example he had set for the community. But mostly, they spoke of his love for Maggie, of the legendary romance that had sustained them through 5 decades of marriage. Tommy stood at the graveside after everyone else had left, looking down at the 2 headstones side by side. Margaret Sullivan and Travis Sullivan, beloved wife and husband, mother and father, grandmother and grandfather. The dates of their births and deaths, the simple inscription, "Together in this life and the next." "You did good, Father," Tommy said quietly. "You and Mother built something that will last for generations. We will carry on your legacy, continue the work you started. Rest well. You have earned it." As Tommy walked away, the sun broke through the clouds, sending shafts of golden light across the cemetery. And if anyone had been there to see it, they might have sworn they saw 2 figures walking hand in hand into that light, together at last, ready to face whatever blessings the next dawn might bring. The ranch continued to prosper under Tommy's management. He ran it with the same integrity his father had shown, treating workers fairly and dealing honestly with everyone. When he grew old, he passed it to his own son, who passed it to his son, and on through the generations. The library Maggie had founded grew into a regional institution, serving multiple communities. A wing was added and named in her honor. Scholarships were established in her name for young women pursuing education. Sarah's books became classics of Western literature, preserving the stories and values of the frontier days for future generations. Her account of her parents' love story became one of her most popular works, adapted into plays and films over the years. The lesson Travis and Maggie had taught, that kindness ripples outward in ways we cannot predict, continued to influence their descendants. Each generation found their own ways to help others, to make a difference in their communities. Some became teachers like Maggie, others ranchers like Travis. Some went into medicine or law or business, but all of them carried the values of compassion and integrity that had been modeled for them. Fort Stanton itself eventually faded as New Mexico modernized, and people moved to larger cities. But the legacy of Travis and Maggie Sullivan remained. Their story was told and retold, becoming part of the mythology of the region. A reminder that one small act of kindness, one moment of compassion, could change everything. And every dawn, as the sun rose over New Mexico, it brought its army of blessings. To the descendants of Travis and Maggie Sullivan, to the people whose lives they had touched, to the world they had helped make a little bit better through the simple act of choosing love over fear, kindness over indifference, hope over despair. The story of a cowboy who gave his saddle, metaphorically speaking, to a woman with nowhere to go, and how that act of generosity brought blessings beyond measure. Not just for them, but for everyone whose lives they touched, generation after generation, rippling outward like waves from a stone dropped in still water. It was a love story for the ages, a testament to the power of human connection and compassion. And though Travis and Maggie were long gone, their love remained, eternal and unchanging, an example of what was possible when two people chose to build something beautiful together. When they chose each other, day after day, through good times and bad. When they chose hope over despair and love over fear. That was their legacy, and it would endure long after their names were forgotten, carried forward in the hearts of all who heard their story and were inspired to live with the same courage, compassion, and love.